For the recording, this is the May 16th, 2018 Trader Vision 2020 weekly workshop. My name's Ed Carter, and I thank you all for coming. Before we get started, if you have trouble with sound, we've adjusted it well on our end, we think. So you can use the speaker icon in the lower left-hand corner of your window to increase your volume, and if you have intermittent problems or something else with the video or audio, try the red X in the upper right hand corner, which will allow you to reload the room in your browser. And then finally, if you want to make the screen larger, you can use the blue, I'm going to call it frame or cross type icon, sort of in the upper left of center, and also a black frame-like icon, again, just left of center, which you can use to make the presentation full screen. And with that said, let's get started. We've got a relatively small group here, so we'll pound through things and see if we can't plan some trades. So our agenda for this evening, or this afternoon, I guess, is I've received several emails related to what does it take to succeed, and I don't think I can handle this. This is too much work, or it's too complex. And so I want to reassure you on those points and do a little preaching there. I want to talk about some global data that we have available to us now in Trader Vision, as well as talk about some additional exchanges we're working on getting. Then I want to go through a whole bunch of improvements we've made to the Performance Widget. We'll do Q&A, and finally we'll plan some trades. I hope to keep this around 45 minutes or so, but if it runs long, it runs long. I'm here until all your questions are answered and we get everything done. Right, Jerry, yeah. The blue plus sign and the black square box makes it full screen. Yep. So let's talk about what does it take to be a successful trader. Some of these quotes you've heard before. I wrote them down myself, but I'm sure that I've heard them someplace. I didn't make them all up myself, but I don't know who I would have stolen them from. You need to know that a dream without a goal is nothing but a fantasy. And a goal without a plan is just wishful thinking. And finally, a plan without a process is nothing but false hope. And what does this all mean? While they're catchy and I kind of like them as sound bites, what does it all mean? What it means is that trading is a job. It's a profession. Trading is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Trading is not a lottery ticket. Trading is a job. You have to put in the work to be successful. Sure, everybody can be lucky. Here and there, time to time, somebody could hand you a great trade and you could do great. But if you want to consistently make money, you don't want to be at the mercy of how good the other guy is at telling you when to get in and when to get out, and knowing what's going to happen with a particular ticker. So it is a job, it's work, and you've got to put in the work, and that means thinking about all sorts of things. Now, I'm not going to go into it tonight. Tomorrow night in the monthly webinar, I will address it in a little bit more detail, but there are a lot of pieces that you need to address, and that's what Trader Vision was built for. And the next thing that I hear then is, well, how can I handle all of this? It's so complex. There's so many pieces to it. And you've all heard this as well. The question is, how do you eat an elephant? The answer is one bite at a time. Narrow things down. Look at it one piece at a time, and you can handle it. You know, the old anecdote of a trip of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, and that is absolutely true. And the same thing is true with Trader Vision and with all the work you need to do to succeed at trading. You can handle it. Lots of people have handled it before you. You just need to take it one step at a time and work the process. Have a set process that keeps you on the right path. Make sure you don't forget things, and work it every time. And as far as Trader Vision goes, that means dealing with just one of the widgets at a time, or even one section of the widgets at a time. And if you need to, close down or minimize the widgets that you don't need, or the sections of the widgets that you don't need, or you're not focusing on at that moment. So it is possible. You can do it. I'm not a genius. You know, Rick and Doug, there's nothing about us that says, you know, Ivy League, you know, MIT brainiacs. We just know what works because of experience. We've worked hard at it, and we build our process, and we continue to refine our process. That's all there is to it. Okay, enough of the preaching. Let's talk about the global tickers we have available to us now. Obviously, we still have all of the U.S. tickers, the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, Amex. We have the OTC, which is also called the pink sheets. Those are the bulletin board tickers. And we also have all mutual funds in the U.S. Now, the problem with some of those things, particularly the OTC and some of the funds, is they have extremely low liquidity, and therefore they don't trade very often, and so you may not have good price data for a day or more because there were no trades. And that's just idiosyncrasy, of our data provider and the fact that they are very thinly traded. Nonetheless, we do have that data. We also have, for our Canadian users, we have the Toronto Exchange, the TSX. All of those tickers are shown with a .to extension. All of the Vancouver and Calgary extensions, which I believe is called the TSX Venture Exchange, uses the .v extension. The London Stock Exchange uses the .l. Steve, that may interest you. I don't know if that's anything that you get insight from your daughter or not on issues over there, but that may be of interest. We also have the Singapore Exchange under the .si. Australia is .ax, and New Zealand is .nz. And I'll do a couple examples of these, just cherry pick ones. We even have Forex. Instead of using a dot, you use =x. So, for example, the USD, the dollar Japanese yen cross would be USD JPY, or is it JPY USD =x? Anyway, we'll look at that. I'll show you examples of all of these, but to prevent going back and forth, let's talk about the performance widget just for a moment. We've now rearranged the performance widget reports and put them into groups. We will be improving the appearance even further by making them into categories. But essentially, we have a breakdown of each group, a set of reports related to accounts, a set of reports related to the dollars involved, and a set of reports related to the percents. And those are provided across an entire range of, you can call them categories or groups. So related to the candle signals or the patterns, chart patterns, related to how well how you rate your discipline in a trade, related to your emotions, both at time of entry and at time of exit, related to the hold time that you have for trades, related to your entry and exit pairs, so one entry and two exits, or one entry, one exit. See if there's any pattern there. Related to the days that you enter or days that you exit trades, and related to the market bias pairs. Are you trading with the long term and short term, or just the short term, not the long term, or both, and so forth. So we have a raft of reports that we provide out of the box. If you have additional requests for reports, get a hold of me and I'll create a report for you and give it to everybody. The other option you have is that TraderVision comes with its own reporting system or tool built in. So I will show you how you can enable editing and you can roll your own reports. Now, with that said, I'm going to tell you that I have put the manuals for that tool on the website, on the tutorials page. But we're going to provide limited support for that because I really don't want to be in the business of trying to educate you all to be programmers in that reporting package and supporting you, teaching you how to use the reporting package. I really want to be showing you how to use the reports and the data and not teaching you to be a quasi-programmer, a report writer, if you will. So I will provide limited support for that, but it is available because I do know that some of you are very technically savvy and have asked about that specifically. You know, can you get into that tool? And I'll show you how to do that as well. Okay, so at that point, let's go ahead and open up TraderVision and take a look at things. Okay, well, I guess the first thing we should do, I'll maximize that. I hope you can see this. I've increased the font size 20%. Hopefully you can see that. I started out here charting ABX in the US. You notice up here that there is no ticker or no .US. It's just ABX, and that's Barrick Gold. And it closed the day at 1320. ABX.TO is, I don't know if it's the parent corporation, but it's their listing in Canada, in Toronto, and they closed the day at 1691 for that ticker. Similar chart, but different price because this is the Toronto listing. And if I believe it's AX, ABX.AX is a different company, Australia Bauxite FPO, and they changed, they closed the day at a different, altogether it's a completely different company. So the first set of digits and numbers, depending on what exchange, like Singapore and a lot of the Asian exchanges use numbers as well. But the first set of digits is the ticker, and then a .AX, for example, will indicate the exchange. If you have no exchange listed, it defaults to US. What else? Oh, I didn't show you, what is it? USD JPY equal X. I can't remember if that's, there you go. Yeah, so we've got the dollar yen cross here, and it looks like it was up a touch today and closed about 110.34. So we have that available to us as well. Additional things that we're working on adding. We have partial data. We're not comfortable with how the data is provided. It's not tested out to be solid yet. Is for China, both Hong Kong and Shanghai, and India. And there are two Indian exchanges. There's the NSE, which is the big one, and then there's also Bombay. And we're looking to add those as well. We have the ability to, in the future, add commodities, all sorts of possibilities. So we'll look at that. But a lot of these things, like for example, I don't know of many people that trade. There probably are, but most of the people I think of trading forex trade on a day trading time frame. So some things like commodities and forex, they lend themselves as an asset more to day trading, and we have to do some major changes to the application to enable intraday time frames to make it useful, get down to a tick by tick type basis. So that's where we're at on the data, and I guess I should ask, are there any questions on that before I move on to the reports or the performance? Don't see anybody typing, so I'll go ahead and move on. This is the base performance widget. As you'll remembered, it's pretty much the same as it was before. We've added some additional details. We tell you what your longest string was for wins, longest string of losses, your largest win and your largest loss. These are new additions. You can change the period that you're reporting by clicking this little down arrow and choosing a new period. Of course, you can always change your account here, and the menu is always available there. If you want to print it, you can. If you want to import some reports or copy this image, you can do that and then paste it into something else, a Word document or what have you. Okay, the reports is where we're going to spend most of our time. Do not be overwhelmed by this. We have yet to clean this up. This will be cleaned up so there will be only those groups that I talked about before. So all four of these candle signals will collapse down into a single entry that can then be exploded. Same thing with discipline, emotions, all of them. So there will end up being whatever this is, 7 or 8, 10 categories, and then you can look at the breakdown, the counts, the dollars, and the percents for each of them. We will also create a set of buttons that you want to look at. You're in the candle signal group and you want to look at the dollars. When you're on the percents one, you just click the dollar button. So that feature is coming soon. Let's just go through some of these reports and look what they have to say. If you have questions, go ahead and shoot them out there. I'll answer them as we go. On this particular test account, basically I have very little data. Most of them were undefined as terms of a candle signal. So we have 5 that you can see here, the blue area, which had no candle signal, and 2 of them were bullish kickers. The data is down below. The chart image is up above. I can print this out if I want. I can copy this. If I copy it, let's see if I can't open a document and paste it just to show you what I'm talking about. So that's the kind of thing where you can paste it in there if you wanted to add it to some sort of report or document that you're working on to keep track of yourself. The data can also be exported as well, and you can export the entire database or just the report data if you prefer. Before I forget, let me show you just in passing that option that I talked about, the report editing feature. By turning that on, you have the ability to edit, and you would use that by double clicking on a report, and it opens up some features that are all documented in the documentation on the website. For now, that's all I'm going to show you, but I'm going to recommend that for most of you, you leave that unchecked, apply it, and just forget about it. Because as I said, that's a fairly complex package, and it would just be easier for you to ask me, have me write a report for everybody, and that everybody can share, because if you have a need to see data sliced a certain way, I suspect other people will as well. So you might as well help them while helping yourself. But that's it for the breakdown. The breakdowns are all pie charts of how the total number of trades breaks down into whatever it is, candle signals, or by discipline rating, or by emotion that you felt at time of entry, so forth. The counts. Okay, again, this is counts of trades, but we give some additional information. So we've got, there were 5 trades that were null, 2 of them were losses, 3 of them were wins. So that's 1.5 wins per loss, and the win ratio is 60%. And again, just the ability for you to visualize that. And then the same thing across bullish kicker signal. If you had 20 signals, then this would be wider and you would probably have to scroll. Excuse me. So I think it's straightforward, but I've been working with it so much I could be too close to it. So if this is confusing to you, please let me know. But we broke these things out into separate categories so that there were fewer variables shown on each report. And the reason we did that is because it was overwhelming, plus the scales were out of whack. When you had percentages and dollars all trying to be scaled the same, it was kind of crazy. So that's how we've broken it down. On the dollars group, I'll call it, you see that as far as candle signals are concerned, the nulls had some losses, had some wins, as we talked about earlier. The average win was $217.45. Average loss was $77.50. The total gain was almost $500. On an average trade, or the expectancy for the next trade, is going to be almost $100 positive, and the profit factor is 2.8 to 1. That means that for every dollar risked, the return expected in profit is $2.81. And of course, the breakdown for bullish kicker as well. Any place where the math would divide by 0, that prevents the formula from working, you'll just see a blank cell in the report. And again, the reporting package, anytime you highlight or hover your mouse over a particular piece of the graph, that piece will highlight up here. So here I'm looking at expectancy, and you can see that turns red. Here I'm looking at the average dollars won for winning trades, and that then turns red in the legend. Again, any questions? I'm either going too fast or it's pretty self-evident. I'm not sure which, but I'll just keep going here. The percentage or percents grouping, we look here at mostly averages. And again, we've just got 2 in this particular category, candle signals, for this particular count. And the nulls have an average win of about 7.4%, and the bullish kickers have an average win of about just under 12%. When there is a loss on the nulls, those are with no signal, about 2.5% loss. And again, it's about a 60% winning percentage, and the average expected future trade is going to be plus about 3.5% for the nulls, plus almost 12% for the kickers. That's pretty much it. I don't want to, I guess I can show you how to print. Again, print, fairly straightforward. It brings us up, and you can send it to whatever printer you want. It defaults to the system default. And of course, everything will look a little bit different when you have more data. So in a different account, I may have 5 different signals that I've traded, for example, and that would cause the reports to be broader, so wider, I mean, and the printout to be wider as well, and so forth. That's really about it. If I were to send you a specific individual report to import the template, this is where you would do it on the menu. Again, you can get to the print there. You can get to the copy if you want to paste it into a Word document or a spreadsheet or wherever you would want to paste it. Excuse me, guys, it's allergy season. I need a drink. So there's no need for me to go through all these reports. The breakdowns, the reports are going to be very similar, just the group that we're looking at. So discipline ratings, same thing. So you have trades that were rated as 0 stars of discipline and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And each one you can get the total number that fell into that category, and that's what's broken down for the breakdown. So it's the same thing as the signals, it just a different group. You can look at the emotions you were feeling at entry. You can look at the emotions you were feeling at exit. You can look at the day of the week that you entered trades, the day of the week that you exited trades. The hold time is a little bit different. We have fewer breakdowns for hold time just based on the nature of that category, that grouping. So you just look at the winners and losers and what's the average hold time that you have. Long versus the number of entry and exit pairs. So these are long trades where you had 1 entry and 1, 2, or 3 exits. If I had 2 entries, again, 1, 2, or 3 exits would be broken down, and there would be a separate second pie breakdown there for you. I see Philippe typing there, so I'm going to hold on for a moment. Okay, let me get to that in just a moment. Philippe, I'm going to stay with this widget for the moment, but we'll get to that. Same breakdown for long versus market biases, the short term and the long term biases, and the same thing for patterns. One thing that I want to caution you for on patterns, well, no, that's okay. I think we've solved it. And then the same reports that we had for longs you have for shorts. I don't have any short trades in this particular account, so I need to add to my test database here. But that's how it would work. Okay, so are there any other questions about the performance widget or the reporting package or anything of that nature? If not, I will go on and answer Philippe's question and talk about any other questions you might have. Again, I see no typing, so let's talk about Philippe's question here on the goal widget. Do I need to adjust the months to goal each month? For instance, I have a 12-month goal at the beginning of January. Do I need to adjust this? No. At every time that you've set a goal. So let's just go back here and look at this. Whoops. Let's go back here and look at this March 14th goal. This goal is based on 12 months into the future from that date. And the same thing with, I don't know if I've got, yeah. It doesn't break down well. But you can see that this line, which corresponds with this goal, goes until, this was on March 9th goal. This line, which is both the orange, yellow, and either red or green, goes to March, whatever that is, 8th, I guess, of the next year. So let's see if I can't get a data point on this. Yeah, so that's the data point there for this. If we go to the next report, it's or the next set of goals, it's 12 months, because that's what this is set to. This one might be set differently. Maybe this March 14th goal was a 24-month goal, or 18-month goal, or 6-month goal. So it could be a different time horizon. But this yellow line that represents your goal, the orange line that represents your plan to reach that goal, and the green or red difference between the two, those will go out whatever amount of time you've specified here. So 12 months, 18 months, 6 months, 1 month, whatever you decide. So it's all based on the goal. Right. Yeah, the goal is if it's not saved yet, this is probably not going to help you. But once it's saved, every goal on the chart will have its own saving set to it. So the set for how far into the future and from what date that it starts is based on the saved goals. So yeah, I think you've got it there. Okay, is there any other questions that you'd like me to address? If not, and I don't see anybody typing, what I'll do is we'll go ahead and look at a few trades. Let me go back here where I've got my list. I just picked out some tickers that were being talked about or that I liked from the room. But if you have anything in particular you would like to see us plan out, let me know what it is and we'll look at it. Nothing? Okay. So let's look at WPX. This is one I really like today. Doing a morning star signal off of the 38.2, I'm sorry, the 23.6 retracement of this run. Looking at a weekly chart, I went out here and said right around that 23.6 extension looks to be some resistance. So that's where I'm going to be looking for my first target. There's more resistance up in here around this 61.8, and I don't care if you draw that up here off of this high or if you do it down here. Yeah, whatever. Someplace in there, there's some resistance. Let's call it the 61.8. And then there's more resistance up here, just not too far above the 100% extension of this run. So let's go back to this daily and say, where are we going to put in? I'm going to put in my stop down here at the moment. I'm not anticipating this to be heavy resistance, so I'm not going to wait until we have a breakout. So I would be looking to enter here anything above, let's say that previous high here, whatever that high was 65. 1865. So yeah, anything above that is a good entry for me. And I'm looking at a first target up here. So I'm looking at a target of, I don't know, something like 11%. And initially, it's a little bit heavy in terms of risk to my stop, about 5.5%. But we can make that work. And the second target then is going to be up here. And the only reason we can make that work is once we see the thing moving up, I can move my stop up tighter, maybe right up below those levels, and just keep moving it up as we go. So let's go ahead and plan this out. Let's go to trade log. Let me move this up here. I want to be able to see the chart and there. I think you guys can see all of that. So let's add a new trade, and this was WPX, I think. Yeah, WPX. How about WXP? Nope, WPX it is. Okay, that's what I was looking at. I'm not sure why that doesn't register as a Morningstar. I need to investigate that. We can see we've got patterns. We've got higher highs and higher lows. We looked at that on the chart. We've got a bullish triangle. You can call that a pullback or a PBO. That certainly would be one of them. I'm going to look at two targets. So one entry and two targets for my plan. I think I said 1865 or above. So let's just say 1865. My stop was down here about $17.65. My first target is up here around $20.65. And my second target is up here around 23 bucks. Let's call it $22.95. With that sort of a plan, says I can buy 125 shares. Let's look at that 125 and stay below my $125 of total risk. If I were to be stopped out here, I'd basically be risking 125 bucks even. Okay, so let's sell 50 shares at the first target. That's going to give us about 2 to 1 exactly. And let's sell the other 75 shares at that second target. If we did that, we'd be looking at a total of 422 bucks. And we can play with that. We could say we can sell, I don't know, let's take this down to, maybe we only want to let 25 run. Maybe we want to sell 100. We can play with that scenario. With that scenario, it's not such a good trade. We still can make 307 bucks out of it. It's not quite making my trade goal, but it's still a valid trade, and you can go somewhere in the middle. Maybe you do 75 and 50. I don't know. You can play with the scenarios until you find something that that works for you. 365 here would reach my goal, so maybe that would be a better plan. But I think this is a great trade. I've got the market bias in the short term working for me. The longer term hasn't quite changed. The ticker is obviously working for us both in long and short term. The 34 is below the 8, and we've got tons of liquidity. Trades about 137, $138 million worth of stock a day. We have that morning star. Again, I'm not sure why I'm not catching that signal, and I will find out. Just out of curiosity. Oh, it's there. Okay, I need to check into that. But that's the first trade I would look at. Do we have any other tickers you guys want to take a gander at? Okay, well, it's almost 5. Let's do one more. MNKD is one I've been watching. I like right where it's at, that it has found some consolidation here after that strong run up, breaking into a rounded bottom breakout. So Mallinckrodt's kind of consolidating here. Once it breaks out of this little area, I'm looking for it to run up into the 1760 area and then on up in here to this $19 area. So I think this has a lot of potential. I would be looking at setting a box like this, something like that, about half of this candle. So I need it to break out of that box. So I'm looking for a buy about 16 bucks with a stop about 15.30, and looking for a first target up here and a second target up there. Let's see what that plans out like. Okay. Again, long-term market's working against us, but the short-term, the trend's on our side. Same thing with the ticker. It's been this long-term downtrend, but the short-term trend is in our favor, and we've got the RBB working for us now. The 8 is above the 34. We've got about $63 million in liquidity. We're putting in multiple dojis here, consolidation at that after that breakout run here, and we've got the rounded bottom breakout. We've got the potential for I guess a W pattern, and that's about it. So let's look at one entry and two exits. I think I said what, 16 bucks as a buy, 15, 35, 30, 35, as a stop, 1750, as a first target, and a second target, let's call it 1895. Says I can do 192 shares. Let's just do 150 shares. If we sold 150 shares, gives us just under $100 of risk to the stop. If we sold 75 shares at that first target, it gives us 2.3 to 1. Only makes us 112.50, but nonetheless. 75 shares at that second target, again, that's 18%, and it gets us close to our goal. 333 as opposed to 350, so I might play with this a bit. Maybe I change this to 70 and I make this 80. Let's see if that gets us over the hump. Close, but not quite. And just keep playing. 65, 85. That would work. That's close enough for government work. $1.75, less than a cup of coffee. we'll let that slide. So again, you play with this. The nice thing is you know what your percentages are. You know what the loss potential is in dollars and in percent. You know everything that's going to happen to you. The emotions are not going to shock you as much. That's one of the ideas behind Trader Vision. You can say, I'm going to set my entry on a price above, whatever I said, $15.60 or $16, and set an alarm on it and let it go. Okay, guys, let's I guess let's call this a day. I want to go back over here. Yeah, sure, Robin. I'll look at gel. Let me go back to that. Genesis Energy. Okay, as another one you can see, as like most charts, I've got them marked up. You can see that I thought this was a level probably back in this area sometime. So I think it's just breaking out of a level here. I think we've got another level up here denoted by the, let's get rid of that, denoted by these highs and those bodies and those lows and these highs here. So I think that target up there around 2380 is a valid target. We may run into some trouble here about the 200, which is only going to be about 5% away. But I think that next serious target is up there. Let's look at a weekly. On a weekly, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with that level. This is the level that we were looking at. It's close to the 200, I think. And you could play with that up or down a little bit there. But let's go back to the daily. Yeah, that's about where we're going to run into the 200. So you may have a little resistance there. If it was me, I would say that's not quite a stick sandwich, but on its way to a stick sandwich. Large candle, indecisive candle, a larger candle, lesser wicks there. I would prefer another follow-through day that matches this. But if we were to buy here, let's just say that we got a 2190. So we get a 2190 buy, and we put our stop in. I'm going to use this as my stop area off of these highs and these highs and these highs. So that's going to be my stop area there, about 2140, let's call it. And if we put a first target, this is where the problem's going to come in. If we're, unless we're working options, and you may be, but unless we're working options, that's just not going to be enough room for us to make it. That would be. That would give us a chance if we look at that first longer term resistance that I had marked out, and maybe even a second one up here. Let's just be conservative and come down off of this high there. So let's call that like this. Do a quick plan on that. Let's close this one, open a new one. GL. Whoops, I put a period in it. Okay. Again, short-term markets working for us, both long and short-term symbols working for us. It has found its base now. The 8 is above the 34, does about 14 million a day. Again, not quite a signal, but in the neighborhood of a stick sandwich. And I wouldn't call that a J hook. And I don't think it has enough distance left to be an RBB. It doesn't. So it's no longer an RBB. But let's just see what happens if we plan this out. If we had an entry there about, what did I say, 2190? Yeah, 2190. And a stop about 2140. And a first stop, or a first target, I mean, about 2375. And a second target up here about 2540. Says we can do 250 shares. Let's look at that. 250 shares. It's slightly big, but still doable. And let's sell 100 of them at this first target. That's 8.45%. And let's sell the other 150 at that second target. It's almost 16% overall. You're making $700. You could probably get away with switching that around. So sell 150 of them at that first target, and 100 of them at that second target. And that trade would work for you. If you're just looking at that one target, though, let's just say that we're putting it all in this first target. It still works. It's 8.5% trade, but with a trade of almost $5,500, you can pull 460 some bucks out of it. So it's doable. That's worth a look. I like it. I just need to see how it stacks up relative to the other ones. Okay, so again, let's go back here and we're going to call it a day. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, ed at tradervision2020.com or support at tradervision2020.com. Of course, you can use the application link to help support ticket, and that will send me an email as well. And that will help you out there. Tomorrow night, just to give you a heads up, I'm going to get a little bit more into the pep talk and preaching. I'm going to go through more of a general overview of the entire application, but I will also be getting into reports. And of course, this is another chance for you to ask questions. And as usual on those monthly workshops, they can run longer, and so you may have some more time. If you have more questions, bring them along, and we'll do what we can. Okay, guys, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and you all have a great rest of your evening.